Hey Paul, Chris, again, this is a response video to your most recent video on Van Gogh, a response to a response, but you said a number of interesting things. I just listened to it, and I just wanted to make a few comments on, on the theme of eccentricity, devotion to Our Lady, the Virgin Mary, what makes something lovable, and the Dutch. You might notice I'm in a closet, and right now in Pittsburgh it's about 10 till 4 in the morning. So already you know there's something eccentric happening. And if I were to make this more eccentric, how would I do that? There's a famous anecdote about a psychiatrist who wanted to make a point at a conference about what it takes to make an impact. And he took off all of his clothing and stood there on stage in the nude. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is far more modest, but is no less eccentric, I hope. I'm just going to take out my rosary and just give a close-up of the miraculous medal here of Our Lady, and this is the Virgin Mary, and this has been blessed by a priest. It says, "O Mary, conceived without sin, pray for us who have recourse to thee." And now you know, I wear this at my work, at my job sometimes, this rosary, and my wife told me not to wear it. And when I first wore it, I felt like this stinging kind of aura around me, like people were gonna, judge me or something. There's another Catholic at my office, though, who I asked about it, and he said, "Whatever, man, if you want to, wear it." So I do, and, speaking of apparitions of the Virgin Mary, I don't know a whole lot about the history of the miraculous medal, but I think the image is from Lourdes. I'm going to check out that book you linked to in the description of your video. I'd like to know more about these French apparitions that you are associated with. What else? Well, it's maybe a bit scatterbrained. I've been under the weather a little bit, which is why I'm up so early. I woke up at 2:45 with a pounding headache and a sore throat, so I'm sipping ginger tea. I just took a shower and shaved and got dressed. And behind me are some paintings I did, and they're not good paintings, but I at least find them lovable because I painted them under certain circumstances, and I genuinely tried to make them good, even though they may not be. They're my first attempts at non-digital art. So here, let's just have a little quick show and tell. It's going to be a little bit tricky to do with a camera like this, but here, I think you can probably see. Yeah, so the upper left is the most recent one I did. Just have a glass with a white rose, and I've always liked white roses, and I had one and I painted it. The lower left, or I don't know if this might be flipped around when it gets uploaded, so whatever, the strawberry there. It's just a picture of a strawberry that I tried to do in a kind of really close-up style. And I was out with my son feeding him lunch, and I just made a picture of a strawberry. And then the upper right is this owl video monitor that we use to listen for when my son wakes up. And I painted that too. And lastly is a coffee pot. Similar sort of, like, you can see those double yellow lines. That's just where we live. All four of these paintings were painted That's a really old coffee pot. First of all, it's from my in-laws. It's it's like this old coffee pot from the '70s. I don't think you can get anymore. And it's such a sturdy, basic, and iconic coffee pot that we use all the time. And these paintings were all painted in the same place. They were painted on this tiny balcony outside this apartment. We've signed a year-long lease, and we are going to certainly leave this apartment as soon as that lease is up. So this year of our life is a year of transition, in that sense, that we're passing through this place. There have been a lot of difficult experiences that I don't want to go into great depth, but we dealt with this whole bed bug situation, and just being new parents. And for me, these paintings are a way to remember that, and they're also a way to try to do something non-digital and to try to, I don't know, just try to be real with the act of creating art, and just enjoy it, And my wife doesn't like them. In fact, she tore them down and stuck them together because there's tape on the back of them, and she shoved them underneath a dresser. And when I got really angry, and I tore them out, and there were even some spots that had been torn from the tape, and I had to fill them back in a little bit, and I put them back up, kind of in a little bit of a fit, or I had a bit of a temper tantrum over it, because I love them. As basic as they may be, I love them. And so, yeah, true painting. I like everything you said. And eccentricity. We cannot be lured into thinking that logic is insight, which is in itself a great insight. So thank you for that. What else? The Dutch. So I had a very interesting experience that I would just like to describe briefly. I'll try to keep this video under 10 minutes, but I witnessed a fire. I was into this loft space, this really high-end loft space where people do this. It's a co-working space. They type on their laptops and they do remote work for various companies all over the world. And across the street there was a fire, and someone was yelling, "Help, help! Call the fire department, call the fire department." So I ran out, and everyone was, at this gas station was looking at this house that a roofer had accidentally set a roof on fire with a blowtorch. And he yelled at me like, "Get a hammer, get a hammer." I wanted to break through the roof to put out this fire that was going. And so he directed me towards this pickup truck, and I ran, and I got the hammer, but by the time I got back, it was all settled. And, I forgot about it for a while, and then I saw him again on the street, same guy. This is weeks later, and he was finishing up the roof, and he introduced himself. He said his name was so and so, and I worked for that company. And he said, "If you ever need a fourth generation roofer, I'm your man." So I Googled his name, and the very first thing that came up was an arrest report from Florida. He'd been arrested in Florida like 10 years ago for child abuse. And he was on the lam. He is in violation of his parole currently, according to this report. I even think I found his mom, who was making some kind of pleading question on a legal message board asking lawyers about her son's situation. He's a young guy, not much about my age. He was arrested when he was 21, and now he's in his early 30s or something. He was absolutely covered from head to toe with tattoos. It's like, I don't know if you ever read Barker's Back by Flannery O'Connor, but this guy was like Barker from Barker's Back. He's got tattoos sort of flaming up his neck, up into his face. And this gas station, this is going to be a longer video. I'm just going to finish this, however long this takes. This gas station, though, is an interesting place, and I've gone in there regularly and just tried to meet the locals. They all hang out there. They buy their lottery tickets. The Mega Millions lottery here right now is getting up to a astronomically high figure of millions of dollars, and everyone is playing it. And one lucky or unlucky person is going to hit the jackpot and have their life absolutely ruined, because the so-called lottery curse is no curse at all, but a simple real-world reflection of the parable of the talents that Christ gives. Where he gives 5 talents to one servant and 3 to the next, and 1 talent to the final servant. And a talent in those days was worth about $1 million. And the reason he doles the talents out that way is because he knows those servants personally. He has the smell of the sheep. He's the shepherd, and I might be mixing the parables, but he knows them, and he gives them the talents according to their worth. And he knows that this is the one servant. He's a 5 million kind of guy, and he knows how to do something with 5 million. And the other guy, he's more of a 3 million kind of guy, and he knows he can do something with 3 million. And the final guy, he's a 1 million guy. There's no shame in being a 1 million guy, but he's a 1 million guy. He only gets 1 million. The 1 million guy resents it, and buries his talent. And how often we all bury our talents in that sense. We're all given so much, but we make no use of it. So, the Dutch. The Dutch. I've been thinking about the Dutch lately. I don't know why, but they've been coming up more and more in my mind. And this is another, being eccentric. This is what it means to be eccentric to me. That I have a preoccupation right now with the Dutch. And that there's no logical reason why I should be interested in the Dutch, except that I bumped into a man in a wheelchair with only 1 leg the other day, about a week and a half ago. And this guy's name is Mark. And I had recently gone to pick apples with my wife and child, and very idyllic with, photos of us picking the apples, posing as a family, looking all happy and moral and good. And my pockets were filled with apples, tons of apples. Apples coming out the ears after the following week. And I saw Mark, and I was like, "Hey, Mark, you want an apple?" Because he was panhandling, and he gets some kind of check from the government, but I don't think it covers all his needs. He wants cigarettes and bubble gum. And well, he was panhandling, and I was like, "Hey, man, how about an apple? You want an apple?" And he was like, "No, man, look at my teeth." And he showed me his teeth. He was like, "Look at my teeth." And it was like it was like a pickup truck had gone through an old swamp graveyard. Tombstones falling over, and moss, and just about had 1.5 teeth left. He's like, "I can't eat no apple." So I was like, "What do you want?" He's like, "I want a coffee." So I was like, "All right, well, I'll buy you a coffee. I don't have any cash, but here, you go to this gas station, right?" I happen to know he frequents this gas station and hangs out with all these guys. I was like, "Let's go, I'll buy you a coffee." And as we're rolling, he's like, "Actually, I don't want a coffee. I want a Pepsi." "I want a Pepsi, man. Give me a Pepsi." I lied. I want a Pepsi. So I was like, "Whatever, man. Fine, you can have a Pepsi, but wouldn't you rather have a Coke?" I was just trying to be jovial with him. It's like, come on, Coke is way better than Pepsi. Have a Coke. And he was like, man, I like Coke better too, but this gas station only has Pepsi. And another thing about being an eccentric, I don't know, how common knowledge this is, but Pepsi was involved in a scandal because they had been using fetal tissue to experiment on in their flavor formula. Weird world, but it's absolutely true. They've since ceased doing this apparently, but for a while they were using fetal tissue to experiment on the Pepsi formula, and that was kind of in the back of my eccentric mind when I said to him, "How about a Coke instead? I don't want to support Pepsi, even $1. I don't want to give it to Pepsi. How about Coke?" Render unto Caesar, as they say, but. So, we went in there and got him a Pepsi. I talked to the guys, and afterwards I looked this up too. I was like, what's the deal? Or actually, first I talked to the cashier. I was like, hey man, what's the deal here? You guys ever think about getting Coke in your fountain rather than Pepsi? And he was like, hey man, take that up with corporate. We don't make those decisions. This is a Shell gas station. So I was like, so I did. I looked up Shell gas. And guess where Shell Gas Corporation is located? In the Netherlands, with the Dutch. Man. And I just remembered that, in Gulliver's Travels, the Dutch are described as the ones who established a trading partnership with the Japanese. They would do this thing, I forget the term, yukori or something, where they would stomp on a crucifix, crushing it with their feet. Stomp on a crucifix to show that they were not Christians, so that the Japanese would trust them and trade with them. And in this way, the Dutch were able to establish an exclusive trading relationship with the Japanese in the 16th century or something. I might have the dates wrong, but anyway, they were able to do this. And yeah, freaking Dutch, man. And they're still up to their old tricks. The reason this is as, relevant, or I hope tangential at least, to the video I'm responding to is that Van Gogh was a Dutchman, wasn't he? I should have fact-checked this, but he was Dutch, right? Van Gogh, Dutch. He's from the Netherlands, wasn't he? My history's a little rough. I'd like to know it better. That's why I watch YouTube. And you talk about him as being the exception rather than the rule. That, for the most part, artists were not insane. Great artists were not insane. And Van Gogh is the exception, and he's also Dutch. So maybe it's because he's Dutch. There might be something to have something to do with it. I don't know, man. This is something on my mind. I'm almost up to 20 minutes in this video. I should stop. Whatever. I don't know, man. You make some pretty long videos, Paul, if you're still watching this. And I watch tons of them, man. I watch tons of your videos, It's weird. It's weird watching tons of videos from someone you don't know in real life, yet who is, in a certain way, on more intimate terms with you than anyone you know in real life. Because I'll, say, get a notification and roll out of bed at 10 till 3 in the morning, and I'll throw on one of your videos. And it's like you're there with me. So, if you're there with me, then I'm there with you. Or as, I don't know, much as I can be. Anyway. It's not really a logical end to this video. It could keep on going for quite a while, actually, if I wanted to. Because I could tell you all about this strange day I had yesterday with my father. And with my wife. And we were listening to some classical music ourselves, to this guy Anthiel, who apparently knew Duchamp. And I told my dad and his friend, who was in the car as well, about what you say in some of your videos about Duchamp, about how the time of Duchamp was so different from our time. It's that people misunderstand him. And we were listening to this guy Anthiel, who is a largely forgotten composer who would have been one of Duchamp's contemporaries in France. Anyway, man, I'm going to go read some Flannery O'Connor. I've made a promise to myself that I'm going to read her story, The Geranium. I've been getting interested in Flannery O'Connor and in Thomas Merton and their friendship. I met a guy who wrote a book on how Thomas Merton was actually assassinated by the CIA. He wrote this very interesting book and very believable book about how the secret martyrdom of, it's entitled The Secret Martyrdom of Thomas Merton, all about how he was probably murdered in Thailand. And he was very close friends, well, at least they had a correspondence with Flannery O'Connor. And they both died at the height of their powers. And she wrote this story called The Geranium, which is one of her personal favorites. And it's not perhaps her best, but it is lovable. It was lovable to her. And I'm going to try to figure out why The Geranium, though not perhaps a great short story in its own right, or at least not as great as some of her other stories, was considered lovable. You know? What, you know, people should be lovable. Not every human being you meet on the street, some of them are pretty hideous to look at. But people are lovable. You know? Anyway, just wanted to say that.